Hey there, Maureen Chiana here, founder of the Mindsight Academy, neuro coach to executives, leaders, entrepreneurs, and a neuro leadership trainer using insights from neuroscience to help you deliver results by learning to work smarter, be in control of your brain, manage yours and other people's emotions, change behaviors, flourish, and exceed expectations. It's a pleasure to be back again with you today with another episode of Lead to Excel podcast. The podcast today has been inspired by the recent events in the UK relating to the A-level results and the GCSE results, and the fact that students are soon going back to school. A lot of students will be starting college or university in the next few weeks. And this podcast is really to challenge, in a way, schools, colleges, and universities to really equip your educators with the right skills to help and support their mental well-being, but also give them the tools to support the mental health or mental well-being of their learners. So the title of our podcast today is The Importance of Emotional Intelligence for Teachers and Students' Mental Health. Mental health is a big topic now, and rightfully so, because if you do not know how to maintain the right mental health or to maintain your mental well-being, you'll struggle to do anything successful. Sometimes it can get to the stage you can't even function at all. So linking emotional intelligence with mental well-being is the aim of this podcast today. So without wasting any more time, get your drink, coffee, tea, whatever that might be, put your feet up and listen in. As schools, colleges and universities look at reopening in a few weeks' time, we're led to ask and wonder if they have the resources to create an equitable experience that meets each of their learners' needs. How prepared are educational institutions to help students and teachers who are dealing with the after effects caused by the coronavirus? It's hard to gauge the full impact that this situation is having on children and young people's mental health and well-being. And I was on a roundtable discussion a few days ago with teachers and education leaders, and it wasn't surprising how concerned they are for themselves and their students' mental and emotional well-being. Students' experiences of the lockdown period will be very varied, so lecturers and teachers need to be adequately equipped to support their learners to adapt to their new situation and the challenges that they are facing as a result. This podcast aims to outline how educational institutions can support teachers and lecturers so that they can function optimally. And also, I aim to provide effective practical advice on embedding social emotional learning into educational institutions. A growing number of studies have shown that educators' personal competencies, more specifically emotional intelligence, are particularly important for teacher effectiveness. Mark Brackett said, "When schools recognize that emotions drive much of how and what we learn, students and educators flourish." The fact is that what makes students and educators thrive in challenging times or times of change like we're currently facing is exactly what makes them human: emotions. Before COVID, the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence carried out a survey of 20,000 high school students from across the United States, asking them to describe how they feel in school. 75% of the words that they used were negative. Tired, bored, and stressed were the three top ones that they used. When they gave 6,000 US educators a similar survey, respondents said that they spent nearly 70% of their days at school feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, and stressed. The research indicated that much of this stress was related to the climate and culture in the educators' schools. The question is, how clearly do you think children and students think when they're feeling scared, anxious, tired, bored, and stressed? How well do you think that they absorb new information or engage in conversations leading to deeper understanding? How effective would you guess educators are when they are anxious for their own safety, worried about getting ill themselves, frustrated, or overwhelmed? Ignoring how people feel and just expecting them to push through emotions can impair their ability to learn, process knowledge, make good decisions, develop healthy relationships, feel confident, secure, and happy, and perform at their best. If you've not listened to my previous podcast, please go and listen to them, because I describe how decision making in particular is impacted or reduced when people are feeling anxious and stressed. When people are feeling anxious or stressed, the part of the brain that deals with decision making is deactivated. And that's why you find that when you're overwhelmed, when you're stressed, when you're burnt out, you can't think straight. Today, I work with so many leaders. I work with education leaders as well, education managers. It's really sad to see how people are underperforming, not because they lack ability, but because they don't know how to manage their emotions. And they don't know how to support the people that they lead or people that they manage to support their emotions as well. There's now a growing recognition of the importance of social emotional competencies to students' learning and academic achievement, with a growing need to train new and old teachers with these skills. There's a great need for patience, flexibility, and support for all staff to effectively manage the transition back to school, college, or university. Some of our kids, by the time they go back to school, would have been out of school for about 6 months. So expecting them to just come back and fit right in is unrealistic. So being able to support them emotionally is very vital. Teaching is a demanding activity, and teachers have great responsibilities in the overall development of physical, mental, emotional, and intellectual growth of learners. They are required to take care of the mental and emotional well-being of the students besides ensuring academic excellence. The continuous professional development of teachers should encapsulate updating their knowledge and equipping them with befitting competencies and skills. An emotional intelligent teacher is one who imbibes emotional skills and practices the behavior on a daily basis, and as a result experiences a more successful and contented professional career and life. Such a teacher knows when and how to be more resilient and proactive for different stressors and is not pressurized by change or stress. Educators who have high emotional intelligence are reflective and not reactive. They are more flexible and not resistant to change. They are effective communicators, not aggressive or passive. They are more future-oriented and optimistic and not pessimistic and negative. They are creative and practice positive behaviors. They are not reactive. So now let's look at the relationship between social emotional learning and mental health. Experts recognize that social emotional learning plays an important role in promoting positive mental health, like anxiety disorders among learners. Social and emotional leadership focuses on developing emotional intelligence, behavioral and character skills that support success in school, in the workplace, in relationships, and the community. And what I want to really get across today is the importance of equipping our educators with these social emotional leadership skills. I created a course for a university recently where I had to train lecturers at the university to deliver the training to students. And it was so amazing to see how the lecturers themselves learned so much of these emotional intelligence skills that they were able to now use it in their personal life, but also use it in planning their lectures to support their students even further. Social emotional competencies is about creating a culture that reflects social belonging and emotional safety. Sadly, many schools, colleges, and universities place social and emotional skills at the bottom of the list of things to learn. We need to ask ourselves where children and youth will learn these skills, since few parents have these skills, and unfortunately, most teachers haven't received formal training to pass along this knowledge either. The good news is any teacher or lecturer can learn how to integrate social emotional learning into their practice. And most teachers actually recognize that they are an essential component of educating the whole child. So now let's look at some of the benefits of this social emotional learning and social emotional leadership. Self-awareness. And this is the capacity to reflect on one's own feelings, values, and behaviors. This time that learners are coming back to school or university or college, it's so important that they learn, that educators and the students learn to recognize their own emotions, understand what they're feeling, and can express those emotions appropriately. One of the main reasons that people suffer from anxiety is the inability to recognize the emotions and recognize the thoughts that are causing the emotions. And this is what self-awareness gives you. The next benefit is social awareness. And this is the ability to view situations from other people's perspective. Respect the social and cultural norms of others and celebrate diversity. You find that when people are stressed, most times because they don't know how to express what they're feeling or they don't understand what they're feeling, they lash out. I heard that the number of abuse, that is children that are attacking parents during the lockdown period, increased a lot during that quarantine period. One of the reasons for this is that lack of ability to understand your emotions and express them appropriately, and also being able to understand how other people feel and build proper relationships. Emotional intelligence skills helps everybody. It helps the child, it helps the teacher, it helps adults, and it helps the children as they grow as well. Let's look at more of the benefits. Relationship skills. The ability to initiate and sustain positive connections with learners, that is teachers with learners, with colleagues, with management and others, but also learners with each other, with their peers, with their lecturers, with their teachers as well, and at home with their parents. The next benefit is self-management. These are a set of skills that include self-motivation, resilience, goal setting, self-discipline, impulse control, and use of strategies for coping with stress. Effective decision making and the ability to make choices that consider the well-being of oneself and others. And I do go on a lot about effective decision making, because stress and anxiety shuts the decision making part of the brain down, and that makes people to act impulsively, makes people take wrong decisions. Next benefit is emotional control. Identify and understand emotions. Emotion and behavioral regulation, empathy or perspective taking. And finally, social and interpersonal skills. Understanding social cues, conflict resolution, and pro-social behavior. As teachers unquestionably influence students' social and emotional development, they have a responsibility to do so in a way that is positive and deliberate. But for this to happen, educators need help themselves to develop these skills for themselves first, because you cannot give what you don't have. I was in a talk recently, and one of the teachers was saying that it's not their responsibility to support students' mental well-being. And that is a lack of understanding, because a teacher with emotional intelligence skills will be able to support students naturally through embedding it in the curriculum, the way it communicates with the students, but also you know when it's time, when you need to now refer the child to an expert. The fact is that educators need these skills so that they can use them constantly while they're dealing with the children in their care. Teachers who lack the communication and regulation skills needed to navigate the current unprecedented challenges are vulnerable to becoming victims themselves. It's crucial for schools, colleges, and universities to train staff adequately and implement systems that helps them to develop students' social and emotional skills so that they can practice and use these throughout their day, use them at home, and importantly, use them for the rest of their lives. In order for educational institutions to successfully weave emotional intelligence into their policies and procedures, it requires that leaders, staff, and parents collaborate with intention to create the required conditions. These stakeholders must confront troubling and challenging issues and respond proactively to infuse emotional intelligence into academic content and social situations. Doing this work and meeting its many challenges is only possible if the adults in the school are themselves emotionally intelligent, competent. An emotionally intelligent teacher or educator will serve as an important role model for students, particularly as the extraordinary challenges of the classroom evolve and become more evident in the next few weeks or months. For this, educators need to be trained in these skills to be able to manage their own emotions and those of others. Goldman and others are quoted as saying, "Emotions are critical ingredients for optimal information processing, social communication, written communication, motivation, attention, concentration, memory, critical thinking skills, creativity, behavior, physical health, and even our very survival." Teachers, lecturers need to be high in emotional intelligence to be successful. Untreated or undiagnosed mental health conditions are likely to affect a student's emotional wellness and their ability to learn, develop, and grow. If undetected, these mental and emotional problems can lead to severe problems such as low achievement, high absence, disruptive behavior, and even dropping out. The first time I used these skills about 12 years ago in a college department that was underperforming, we noticed that a lot of the students who were leaving and going on to university were dropping out. Those that went into the workplace were losing their jobs. So years after, they're just going around the circle. They hadn't really progressed. But once we introduced these skills, I introduced it to the teachers, introduced it to the students as well, we noticed a massive change where the learners were now going on to university. And I remember that first cohort, how about 5 of them came out with first class degrees, a lot of them 2-1s. And today, the ones that I'm in contact with are in excellent jobs. And that's when I knew that this stuff really works. And over the years, I've been able to use it to completely transform performance and abilities of educators and learners. I just created a course for a university for the undergraduates at the business school, Emotional Intelligence in Leadership, to equip the learners with the skills to be effective leaders. First and foremost, you've got to be able to lead yourself before you can even work with a team or work with your peers. So these skills are so important. And if educators don't have them, they can't help the learners who are in their care. And I keep emphasizing this. Social emotional learning can be one of the most proactive initiatives for mental health illness prevention by equipping students with the skills and competencies that they need to develop resilience and effectively manage their behavior, emotions, and relationships with others. Research indicates that focusing on social emotional needs can help reduce anxiety, suicide, substance abuse, depression, and impulsive behavior in learners. On the other hand, it can also help to increase academic performance, attendance, and pro-social behaviors such as kindness, personal awareness, and empathy. Embedding emotional intelligence into learning is very vital to reduce reactive stress responses with practices such as mindfulness exercises, which are having a positive effect on reducing aggression and reactive behavior. Now, let's look at how emotional intelligence and mental health affects educators. Every educator will tell you that teaching can be very stressful, as they have to not only manage a classroom or lecture theater full of students or children, but they also have to respond to parent queries, handle administrative paperwork, develop curriculum, and be responsible for extracurriculars. Studies indicate that up to 50% of new teachers quit the teaching profession within 5 years. With incredibly high rates of burnout and stress, it's important to support the emotional well-being of our educators. Having had experience as a university lecturer myself, a school teacher, and a college teacher and lecturer, I know the amount of pressure educators, education leaders, and managers come under. But I also know from my work as a neuro leadership trainer and consultant, having worked with so many leaders, managers, students in colleges and universities, that emotional intelligence makes a huge difference to their mental health, academic performance, and their future life as they get into the workplace. It's incredibly sad to see so many adults today struggle in the workplace. Youth coming out into the workplace and struggle to adapt to life in the workplace, all because they don't have emotional intelligence skills. You can imagine the difference it would make if we equip our children and youngsters at an early stage with these skills. You can imagine what the workplace would look like. These will be adults that are resilient, adults that can collaborate with people in different cultures and diverse groups of people, adults that know how to communicate effectively, adults that have empathy for other people and people they work with, leaders that know how to manage people and know that they are managing humans, leaders that are not just focused on data and results, but focused on the people, knowing that when you care about the people, that the results come. So educators who have developed high emotional intelligence are more likely to respond to students with empathy. Angry and stern responses from teachers can easily breed resentment in learners. And this is the same for education managers. When you use angry or stern responses, it breeds resentment amongst the teachers, and that is why so many educators are unhappy, because they feel that management don't care. On the other hand, educators who lead with care and compassion are more likely to build positive relationships with their learners and gain their trust and respect. Emotional intelligence training helps educators with better classroom management as well as learner engagement in a way that promotes interest and engagement. And a lot of what I've focused on here is really equipping our educators with these skills so that they can help their students. But the same goes for education leaders need these skills to be able to manage more effectively as well. So in conclusion, a better educational outcome can only be achieved if educators are high in emotional intelligence. 3 days of inset training at the beginning of the academic year is not enough to help teachers or lecturers rewire their brain to increase their emotional intelligence. They need ongoing support to enable them address issues appropriately as they arise. The impact of training programs should ensure better effective educators. A teacher or lecturer can be more effective in teaching if they have high emotional intelligence. They can plan the lessons as per the desired goals and they can manage the classroom well, keeping in mind the individual differences of the learners. If anyone wants to discuss this further with me, I'll leave my details at the bottom. I run a lot of emotional intelligence training. I can do it virtually. I've got an online academy, the Mindsight Academy. Do have a look at the Mindsight Academy, because if you want courses that they can do at their own pace, you'll find it there. And I'll be happy to have that discussion about mapping out a plan for how we train them over a period of time, because just giving them a few hours of training at the beginning of the year and leaving them to just go off into the classroom or lecture to work with learners, or now that a lot of the training is virtually, it's not going to work. So I'll be so happy to work with you to come up with a plan where we can train our educators and education leaders effectively so that we can help our students and children. Secondly, it's important to note that there are very concrete reasons to promote social and emotional learning in schools and educational institutions at all levels. According to Goldman, the various problems like bullying, disciplinary problems, violence, and drug abuse can be addressed in schools with application of emotional intelligence. The emotional intelligence of children starts developing long before they ever join school. Emotional intelligence levels vary widely depending on the learner's home environment. With a solid basis in emotional intelligence, academic performance, as well as sound behavior, learners can improve and learn to control their emotions and thoughts by maintaining their brain health. These skills don't just stop while they're students. These are skills that they will learn to use as adults in their personal and professional life in future. Finally, there is no age at which it's too early or too late to start teaching and learning emotional intelligence. The parts of the brain needed to enhance emotion vocabulary and learn strategies for regulating emotions are active until we die. By infusing into our education system and equipping our educators with solid teaching about emotion, we can ignite passion and purpose in our students and educators. We can teach our students to collaborate, take risks, and get up when they are knocked down. Teaching emotional intelligence will help our learners and educators inform their decisions, support their well-being, and help them achieve high goals. When learning about emotions and how to manage them pervades a school or educational institution, classrooms, lecture rooms, lunchrooms, hallways, school offices, the entire community can be transformed. Leaders, teachers, students, and families also interact more positively. Now, heads, governing bodies, and leaders in educational institutions have a responsibility to use your power, use your influence and resources to protect the physical and mental well-being of educators and students during this time. Please equip our educators with the skills that they need to help themselves and help the learners that are in their care. Thank you again for tuning in, and I hope you found this podcast really useful. As I've said, I'm available to really help anyone with training their educators or leaders. It's so important that we do what we can to equip our students with the right skills, and it will help them maintain great mental well-being. Basically, what we're talking about is having a good brain health, and that's what matters. Teaching them how to control their thoughts and how to manage their emotions is key. So, if you have not subscribed to this podcast, please hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to this podcast so that other people could also find this podcast and listen to it. I'll appreciate you leaving a review or comment about the podcast. And finally, I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast. Do look after yourself, take care, and keep soaring. Remember, you are limitless. Bye for now.